A stage built for empowerment. A Hollywood legend about to go off script. Was this just a harmless joke? Or the most calculated public takedown in recent memory? Brooke Shields didn't just interrupt Meghan Markle at the South by Southwest festival. She strategically detonated a narrative grenade aimed directly at the foundation of the Duchess's carefully crafted public image. And the fallout, including a podcast episode featuring King Charles's own goddaughter that was mysteriously scrubbed from the internet, is more shocking than you can imagine. We've analyzed every second of the footage, every shift in body language, and uncovered the real story behind the deleted podcast. What we've found will fundamentally change how you see this confrontation. This wasn't just a catty remark. This was a masterclass in reading a room and a brutal lesson in authenticity. Stick with us. Welcome back. Before we dive into the moment that set the internet ablaze, we have to understand the chessboard. The setting: Austin, Texas. March 2024. The S by Southwest Festival, a global hub of culture and innovation. The event? An International Women's Day panel, ironically titled Breaking Barriers, Shaping Narratives. A high-profile stage for a high-stakes discussion on female leadership. And on that stage, we had our key players. First, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, no longer just a royal, but a global brand, a producer, a philanthropist, and the host of the Archetypes podcast. Her entire post-royal identity has been built on a narrative of empowerment, of overcoming obstacles, and of using her voice to fight for others. Then, we have the legendary Brooke Shields, a true Hollywood survivor, a woman who has been famous since she was a child, who has navigated scandal, scrutiny, and the darkest corners of the entertainment industry and emerged with her career and sense of self intact. She's not just an actress, she's an icon of resilience, a professional who has spent 50 years in front of a camera and an audience. And moderating it all, the respected journalist, Katie Couric. She wasn't just asking questions, she was setting the stage for what was to come. The atmosphere was primed for an inspiring, if predictable, conversation, but no one could have predicted the collision of narratives that was about to unfold, all centered around one seemingly innocent story Meghan has told for years, her soap story. It's her feminist origin story, the tale of how, as a plucky 11-year-old, she took on the corporate giant Procter & Gamble and won. It's a story she's used to define her brand. And it's the very story Brooke Shields was about to torch on live television. It all starts with the perfect setup from Katie Couric. She tees up the question, inviting Meghan to talk about her early advocacy. This is Meghan's home turf, and Meghan begins. She recounts the now famous story, how as a young girl she saw a commercial for Ivory dish soap with the tagline, "Women all over America are fighting greasy pots and pans." She tells of her righteous indignation, the letters she wrote to the company, to powerful women, and how months later, the company changed the word women to people. It's a powerful story, on the surface. But as the story unfolds, another narrative is playing out inside the mind of Brooke Shields. Watch her body language. She's listening, but she's also observing. She's not just hearing the words, she's feeling the room. And this is confirmed by what Shields would later reveal on a now infamous podcast. She felt the energy of the audience begin to wane. In her professional opinion, the story, while well-intentioned, was coming across as, in her words, too precious. That was the assessment of a seasoned veteran. The panel is becoming a lecture, not a conversation. And Brooke Shields, the consummate professional, decided to do something about it. She wasn't just a panelist, she was an entertainer, and her audience was getting bored. Meghan is in the middle of her point. Shields sees her opening. She leans in, not with aggression, but with the calculated timing of a comedian. "Excuse me," she says. "I've got to interrupt you there for 1 minute." Meghan's face freezes. You can see the flicker of confusion. This wasn't in the script. And then Brooke Shields delivers the line that would echo across the globe. She turns to the audience and says, "I just want to give everybody here a context as to how we're different. When I was 11, I was playing a prostitute." Boom! A nuclear bomb of a punchline. In one sentence, she achieves 3 things. 1, she shatters the overly serious tone with raw, self-deprecating, and shocking humor. 2, she creates an unforgettable viral moment that completely eclipses Meghan's story. And 3, she draws a brutal, unspoken contrast. While one 11-year-old was writing a letter for a school project, the other was surviving the predatory machinery of Hollywood. The audience reaction is instantaneous and explosive. As Shields herself said, the place went insane. But look at Meghan. Look at that smile. It doesn't reach her eyes. That is the smile of someone who has completely lost control of the narrative. She's been publicly outmaneuvered, and she knows it. If the story ended there, it would just be an incredibly awkward viral moment. But what happened next suggests this was far more than just an onstage spat. It hints at a panic behind the scenes. Weeks after the festival, Brooke Shields appeared on the An Unexpected Journey podcast, hosted by India Hicks. Now, India Hicks is not just any podcast host. She is a designer, a writer, a former model, and the goddaughter of King Charles III. She was a bridesmaid in Charles and Diana's wedding. Her connection to the royal family is deep and undeniable. And on this podcast, Shields didn't just mention the incident. She unpacked it. She explained her entire thought process. She admitted she was trying to be funny because the panel was so serious. She doubled down on her too precious critique. She gave the world the unfiltered, behind-the-scenes story. The episode was released, and the story exploded all over again. But then something strange happened. Just days after it went live, the episode vanished. The link on India Hicks's website led to a page not found error. The interview was scrubbed from the internet. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why would the King of England's goddaughter delete an interview with a Hollywood icon? There are a few theories. Was it pressure from the Sussex camp? A desperate attempt at damage control? Was it India Hicks herself, realizing she had waded into a PR nightmare for the royal family by platforming a critique of Meghan? Or was it Brooke Shields, facing backlash and wanting the story to go away? Whatever the reason, the deletion transformed the narrative. It was no longer just about an awkward interruption. It was now about a potential cover-up. It added a layer of intrigue and suggested that Shields' words had hit a nerve far deeper than anyone realized. They didn't just delete a podcast. They tried to delete the evidence of intent. To truly understand this conflict, you have to deconstruct the two opposing narratives that collided on that stage. First, let's look at Meghan's narrative, symbolized by the soap story. Why is this one anecdote so critical to her brand? Because it's the perfect, bite-sized story of her lifelong commitment to feminism. It positions her not as someone who became an activist after she became famous, but as someone who was born for this role. It's the cornerstone of her Archetypes brand. It's simple, it's inspiring, and it's easily digestible. However, the story has faced scrutiny before. As the Starlet Scoop video pointed out, many have questioned whether it was simply a well-executed class project rather than a lone crusade. Critics have asked just how much influence an 11-year-old's letter truly had on a multi-billion-dollar corporation's marketing strategy. By repeating it so often, Meghan has made it a central pillar of her identity, but a pillar that, under pressure, might be more fragile than it appears. Now, let's look at Brooke Shields' counter-narrative. What was her motivation? Some might say it was jealousy or a mean-spirited desire to upstage the Duchess, but that's too simple. This wasn't about being mean, it was about being a professional. Shields represents a different kind of survival, a different kind of authenticity. Her prostitute line, as jarring as it is, comes from a place of brutal honesty about her own lived experience. She wasn't telling a polished, inspirational anecdote. She was sharing a trauma, but she was using it as a tool to connect with the audience, to create humor, and to save a segment that was, in her professional judgment, failing. In essence, Shields' interruption was a rebellion against what she perceived as performative activism. It was a rejection of a curated, precious story in favor of something raw, real, and unfiltered. It was the ultimate read the room moment, delivered by someone who has been reading rooms for a living since she was a child. What's the final verdict in this court of public opinion? In a battle of narratives, authenticity often wins. On that day in Austin, Brooke Shields, with a single, self-deprecating sentence, did more than just get a laugh. She exposed a potential vulnerability in the armor of brand Sussex. She reminded the world that there is a difference between telling a story about overcoming adversity and a lifetime of actually living it in the public eye. The subsequent deletion of the podcast only amplified the impact. turning a spotlight into a searchlight, investigating why the truth of that moment was deemed so dangerous. Meghan Markle wanted to shape a narrative about female empowerment. Instead, she became part of a new narrative, one about a seasoned pro showing a relative newcomer how it's done. But this story leaves us with so many unanswered questions, and that's where you come in. Who do you think was truly in the right? Was Brooke Shields a hero for injecting some much-needed reality into the conversation, or was she out of line? Has Meghan Markle's brand been damaged by the relentless questioning of her signature story? And the million-dollar question: why was that podcast really deleted? What are they so desperate for you not to hear? Let us know your most detailed theories in the comments section below. We read them all. And if you want more deep dives that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch, make sure you smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Until next time, question the narrative.